Next In.
Well, welcome to Next In. We are very, very excited. I'm very, very excited. I'm coming to you from my home, and because will have a special host, we have decided maybe to fire Shane. So we're testing out a new host. just kidding. So Shane and I host Next In. We run Next Level, which is in the gaming space on the recruiting side. Because of it, we bump into some really cool, amazing, awesome people. We have Chad Wilson, who's the lead game designer for Respawn Entertainment. They operate a really tiny game. You may or may not have heard of Apex Legends, maybe. So I am really, really thrilled to have Chad here. My kids are really, really thrilled that I have Chad here. So Chad, thank you so much for joining us. And as we start, I think way better than listening to me talk, a lot of people probably want to hear your story, how you got to where you're at. Lead game designer, working on arguably one of the best and biggest games in the world currently is a pretty big deal. And there's going to be a lot of people who are listening to this going, they're super jealous. It's like a basketball player getting to talk to like LeBron James, and they're like, oh my gosh, how did you get there? So how did you get there? What has been, I'm sure it's not a linear path. What have been the steps you've taken that have gotten you to where you're at?
Great question. It's a very long-winded answer, and so I'll give it in two parts. There's like before I became a designer, which was at 18, I joined EA, and I really wanted to play games. I was great at playing games, but I was kind of like the Dexter blood splatter analysis for games. I would take all the UI screens like at home, and I would string them together to figure out the most optimal way. This is well before speedrunning was actually a thing. So I was like min-maxing games. I had a small group of friends in high school that kind of did the same thing, and we kind of all became really good at it. And then you insert like MMOs, and that became kind of an addiction. And one of my friends was more of a savant at programming. So he went off and joined EA right out of high school as a programmer, and he put my name as a recommendation in for a tester. And I said, cool. And they're like, oh, wait, you have drafting experience. I was like, yeah. And I was doing AutoCAD and all that other stuff. And then they showed me Maya and 3D Studio Max. I was like, oh, yeah, I could do this, no problem. This is easy. And so I jumped in there, and I realized I hated it. I hated it with a passion. I didn't want this for a career. And I was like, do you have like something just like bottom of the barrel, the lowest common denominator? They're like, yeah, we got this thing called QA. I was like, cool, I just got to play games? No problem. So that's where I started. And growing up on a ranch, I realized I was like, this is the best place to start. I'm going to learn everything from the ground up. So I did just that. I got in. My first game was actually Battlefield 2, which was crazy to be this kid that played Battlefield, 1942. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then they very quickly realized I wasn't just a QA. I was actually giving like design input. But then they didn't have a design spot. So I was like, well, what do I do? And they very quickly said, why don't you mentor some people and really figure out what you want to do? So I mentored level designers, narrative designers, systems designers, just content designers, and then artists and engineers and programmers, and from everybody under the sun.
They're like, you don't know what you want to do, but let's just mention everyone. Just go out and mention.
I did. I totally did. You're right. And EA was super great about it. And I was in the Redwood Shores headquarters down in the Bay Area. And I was just this young kid, no clue what I wanted to do for a career. And then there's this one systems designer, his name is James DeGay. He was the brains behind Godfather's kind of risk system on the back end. He did a lot of the James Bond stuff. And I was just kind of infatuated with what he did. And then one day he kind of threw a spreadsheet over the wall, and he's like, fix this. I don't want to do it. I was like, all right, no problem. So I was like, here's your problem. Here's the values I would do. And then, by the way, if you keep it like this, you're going to have issues like down the road. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, you're going for a 200+ hour game, right? He's like, yeah. I can beat it in 2. I was like, so I changed the spreadsheet. He's like, you're really good at this. I was like, oh, thanks. That was like my first like designer compliment. So I took that to heart and became a systems designer. And so from that point on, I asked EA if they had any jobs on James's team, and they said no. So at that point, I took my degree, which was very much EA driven. It was like game art and design. I was like, sure, I have a degree. I can qualify for all these jobs now. And he said, we don't have a spot. I was like, well, that sucks. So I put my resume out there just like every other new college graduate. And I got really, really lucky and joined Cryptic Studios and helped build 3 MMOs in about 3 years. So starting with Champions and Star Trek, and then a little bit of Neverwinter Nights. So that was a crazy, crazy like first step into the design hood. Learned a lot of stuff from proprietary engines to how to convert premium into a more hybrid and a free-to-play model. Yeah, a little bit of everything, right?
So I got to ask and take a little bit of a step back, because like you came into things in kind of an untraditional way, right? There's a lot of people that are like, how do I become a game designer? And you got thrown into the mix across the board, right? Like why do you think that happened, right? Like what do you think were like your tangibles or maybe your intangibles that got you to become a game designer? Because again, there's so many people out there that want to do what you do but can't figure out how to do it.
So, like I said, I didn't know I wanted to be a game designer. I just had game design instinct. I had always built things in like D&D. I built my own classes, my own modules, my own dungeons. I was already building games outside of this just for my friends, right? It wasn't like a popular thing. Obviously, it's D&D in 2000. So yeah, when I came in, I was just like, well, I'm good at this thing. Can I apply that somehow? And I was good at games. I was good at making D&D stuff, but I wasn't really good at like shooters or how to know how to create a level. So I just learned. I learned everything. And when you're growing up on the ranch, there's no I can't. Like that's not a thing. It's I can. It's just how long will it take, right? And so failing was okay. I learned everything from failing. So I failed a lot. I failed at shooter design. I failed at quest design. I failed at everything. And then I would always ask, how can I get better to the people I was mentoring? And they told me, and I just sponged it up. So,
we talk to a lot of people, CTOs, CPOs, game designers, all the rest. And there are, for as much as they have very different backgrounds, they all seem to have some pretty big similarities. Number one, and you mentioned it, is this idea of mentors, being around people who mentor you and finding people who, although maybe for selfish purposes or not, are there to help grow you. Number two, willingness to fail and fail a lot, but learn from each failure and constantly ask the question, how do I get better? And be okay with not being the best at it. And number three, raising their hands. We see that all the time as people are like, well, they raise their hand. EA says, I need you to do you want to do QA. What about doing this? Yep, I'll do it. And just raising your hand and saying, I'll do it. I'll take on the next thing. I'll take on the next thing. I'll take on the next thing. And I love that part of your story. Is you found mentors, you asked them, how can I get better? You didn't worry about failing. And you just continued to raise your hand and get to where you're at. So now you're at Respawn, and you're a big part of. What is your part at Apex Legends Mobile?
Sure. So I joined as more of like the meta specialist, right? Player experience is always been my mastery. So when I joined Respawn and they said, hey, what do you think Apex Mobile is from a brand perspective, what do you think it is on the mobile devices? And I was like, it's fluid and variable movement. And it just went on and like so many different tangents with the kind of the creators of Apex HD, and I guess that impressed them because I got the job. So, and I hit on the main like brand beats, but when I actually got into the team, I realized there was just so many things that we had the possibilities to do that HD just dreamed of doing, right? But everything takes 14 months in HD to do. We're like, cool, see you in 3 months, got it, right? And so we're doing new modes, new legends, new everything. But at the end of the day, we can have all this awesome stuff in the game, and if there's no good path to it, it sucks. It sucks really bad. And so they said, hey, Chad, how do we make this better? And I just go and do it. And I don't really take no for an answer. And so while I piss people off, I get the job done. So
I love that. I love that. So I'm doing this one from home, and he's been listening, and he's been like really, really eagerly waiting. It was about 3 weeks ago, my 13-year-old son was telling a friend in the car that he loves this game, Apex Legends, on his phone, and he asked his friend, "Do you play it?" And it's awesome and everything else. So when we found out you were going to be on the show, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to have a new co-host. I'm going to have my son ask you some questions because he's a giant fan."
Okay.
So this is my son. This is my son, Rome. So I'm going to let him share some screen. So he's come up with 2 questions, although Chad has said he's going to ask for a third. So you just got to off the cuff. You got to pull it off. So
you can do it.
What's your first question?
My first question is, have you guys thought about adding a Battle Royale map? Another one.
We have definitely thought about it. Yes.
Are you encouraging him to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, we have thought about it. Yes, we're working on it. You will most likely see it in the future. I can't tell you which one or how cool or not cool it is, but yeah.
I'll bet it's cool, right?
It's Apex level cool. So I guess Apex mobile level cool, which is slightly better than Apex.
And for number 2, have you also thought about adding like a zombies mode or like a survival mode at all?
So if you remember a lovely mode in HD, it was called Shadowfall, right? We're looking into potentially ways to bring that over to mobile, but we'll see.
All right. So what's your third question? Maybe it's a personal one about Chad and Apex, maybe his favorite stuff or whatever.
Who's your favorite legend?
Who's my favorite legend? Oh, there's so many awesome ones you guys haven't even seen yet. So on HD, I always loved Bangalore because the smoke screen. I was just a huge fan of that. But on mobile, I love Octane because the movement, like just maneuverability is king on mobile. So run everywhere as fast as you can is my game.
So what's your favorite legend?
Definitely Fade.
Fade? Oh, you like Fade? Oh, he's so right. I was playing him today. Some new skins are coming out. It's great.
One more. So you do play?
Yeah.
Yeah, how could he not? I mean, the guy creates.
I have to play. I do have to play.
Right?
Actually, everybody in our team plays every single week.
Can you like give yourself coins and stuff?
Yes.
So what he really meant to ask, because when I
Can I
told him
give you
yesterday,
coins? No.
He's like, how does he become a part of the Apex level team?
I mean, my kids ask the same question, and technically I do give my kids stuff because we have a friends and family code to give out, but I'm only allowed 2 of those besides myself.
pretty sure we're a friend.
Sure.
Family by this point. This has been 12 minutes so far. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Talk to you later, Ron.
Congratulations. That's a good grade.
So he loves your game.
Sounds like
I think that's awesome that he got to talk to you. I think it's awesome. I want him to be able to watch this. And I know this is really meant more for adults and things like that. And people are trying to get into, getting on to becoming, a recruit.
If you can inspire him young, that's how you build the future, right?
Right. I mean, I always do video conferences at high schools and colleges, because those are the minds that are kind of untainted, right? They still have the dream, and I don't really believe in goals. I believe in long aspirational objectives with no end in mind, because goals have like a finite end, and if you never hit your goal, you fail. So
I love that, and I think that's awesome. Actually, we partner with here and I'm going to bring this up because Chad, you lived here, right? When did you live here? How old? So Chad, just a quick backstory. Chad, you are currently in where?
I'm in Austin, Texas right now.
But you're from California.
From California.
But you did say you lived in Franklin,
Tennessee. Live in Franklin, Tennessee. I went out there for a small studio, built some games, and then fell in love with it, honestly. And then the game industry kind of moved me back to Texas.
So
which studio?
It was a billionaire's studio, and he owns Lonely Planet. I can't say his name, but you can do some homework. And then the studio that I actually worked for was called NC2 Media. So it's not popular. They were doing one app with a bunch of different games. I don't even know if they ever launched the app, to be honest.
So here's one of the cool things. When you were growing up, you're on a ranch, you had to figure this all out on your own. And a lot of it was based on like this tabletop, as you said, D&D stuff and whatnot. So in Franklin, Tennessee, and I'm going to a little shout out here, they have in the public school system has built a Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center, the EIC, and it's right on Franklin High School's campus. Right. And we have started to work with them just recently, and they are doing, it's not co-ops, it's your senior year project or whatever, if you get into it, and they're doing video game design and audio engineering and all this stuff, awesome stuff to be able to teach 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds what it required you to like figure out on your own,
Yeah,
right?
basically. I mean, it's fast tracking the entry process into the game industry, and I love it, right? I would love today to interview people that have gone through 4 years of electives of just game design and just
Dude,
and
yeah, the Williamson County Innovation Center down in Franklin was unbelievable. We had a couple of kids pitch us, and one of them got a full ride scholarship to Berkeley's music school. The
oh,
other
great.
one is going to, I think, Florida State University for
Central
their
Florida.
Central Florida for their media program. And they built this game together where it was helping teach people how to understand musical notes. And it was a shooter game on a 2D map. And you had to select the note, and that was your bullet. And if you wanted to shoot this particular note that was coming after you, you had to use the right bullet. And if you didn't use the right bullet, then it would kill you. And
Oh, wow.
so they played a note, you listened to it, you had to hear what the note was, and then what the actual look of the note was. You had to select that to shoot. And the noise was the only thing that would work at that given time if you were to fire or battle. And it was really cool because you have to train yourself how to recognize what that note is, both from a visual and an audio perspective. And
So
it was really
think
cool seeing that. And these kids are sick. It was what, 17 and 16?
17 and 16 and 17, 17 and 18. So how would that have changed your career if you were learning that in school by people who, they want to bring in people like Chad to come in and give them some inspiration and probably some technical knowledge
Right.
of how to get into that? How does that change your, not necessarily, maybe I shouldn't say your path, but the path of a generation when you're actually able to see it, in school?
Yeah, my path was a nightmare. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody from growing up on ranch to just everything that is drama in high school. But if the question's about what do I think kids should do in high school with that amount of information available and those programs available, I would say, like you said, raise your hand, go for it, try it out, see if it's your cup of tea. A lot of people think, coming up with an idea is game design. It's not. You have to come up with 1,000 ideas, and you got to kill like 99% of them. And maybe somebody somewhere says, "Hey, Chad, he had a cool idea. Let's talk to him." Right? And that's how you become a game designer. You have to learn how to kill ideas, but also come up with a million more. So,
Yep. Be willing to fail, right?
oh yeah, all the time. Like failure is such a humbling experience that, I mean, if I didn't learn how to do it at an early age, I would have completely lost my mind in the industry. That's actually what causes a lot of the churn out of the industry is just failure.
Yeah. So where do you see the industry going? Like, and I like asking because the gaming space, it's entertainment, it's technology, it's engineering, all kind of rolled into one. And, you can ask someone in
Yeah.
movies, where's that headed? And someone might say the 4D experience or whatever, IMAX and everything else. Where do you see the gaming, the next frontier of gaming and where that's headed?
Sure. Great question. Over the 20 years, I've done anything from cabinets to Engage to handheld to Facebook to mobile to AAA consoles to VR, AR, fully immersed bodysuits. I've done everything, right? And so when I see things like NFTs pop up, I'm like, it's pretty neat, but it's more of a gimmick, right? Like I don't see that as the future, but I see that as a mechanic that could be part of the future, right? Where something like VR has a strong possibility to be a future sector of gaming, but not probably all of gaming because of motion sickness and all this other stuff, right? So for me, I actually think the future of gaming is interactive television. Netflix is exploring this right now with Choose Your Own Adventures, but they can go so much farther. They can put people in those experiences, just like crossplay is very much taking over consoles and PC. Pretty soon we'll have crossplay with VR, crossplay with AR, crossplay with everything. Crossplay will be life.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you talk about, because I know I was talking to Stray Kite Studios down in Texas not too long ago, and that's what they're doing right now is they have got a couple of deals with some people that are unannounced that we're not allowed to talk about, but what they can talk about is the fact that they're building a TV movie series essentially where you get to be a part of that movie and you get to interact with the season and the episode and what does that mean and how do you unlock that episode and how do you get to the next episode. So they're doing like a Walking Dead version, and every single episode is a new level.
We tried to we tried to crossover on Defiance. I don't know if you remember the crap show
Yeah.
of an MMO, but we did one season of Defiance from Sci-Fi, and then we paired it with in-game events. So whatever happened in the game would come onto the show, and whatever happened in the show would come onto the game. While it was mostly smoke and mirrors, we already kind of knew what would happen because the scripts and everything. But like, it was fun to be able to work with such a big production. Now the game was crap, but it is what it is. You don't make gems every time.
So let me ask you a question. Have you watched Black Mirror? And
Yes.
okay, are you a
Turn
Black
that
Mirror?
into a video
So
game.
good.
Ooh.
It's so good.
Oh.
And
But I
there
mean,
is a
that might
Black
be
Mirror
my
Choose Your Own
favorite.
Adventure game.
What'd you say?
Yeah, there's a Black Mirror Choose Your Own Adventure game on Netflix.
That's why I brought it
Yeah,
up, because
yeah.
that is, my wife and I watch every single episode. We know all of
so
them
good.
like the back of our hand. It is one of those, when you watch the show, you're like, that was interesting, but then you give it about an hour to sit in your brain and you're like, let's talk about this. So that really was like the Amazon Echo, and it's like there's a live person in there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's creepy. And you start to think about how technology, like you're like, oh
it's
my
really
gosh.
good. Actually, so going back to Netflix really quick, I really love the Bear Grylls adventure stuff because
Yes.
I love watching it with my kids, and especially my 7-year-old. He gets into it, and then he like min maxes an experience so he doesn't die or whatever. It's great. I just love that level of engagement.
My kids did it too. They were the ones, they got me into that Bear Grylls, where it's like, all right, so do you jump out of the plane and dive into the water?
Right. Yeah.
Or, and you're like, how about I do neither? How about I sit here and I pretend that they do it, because I'm going to die.
Sometimes pretending is the way to explore life.
Yeah.
My best friend and I went down to Utah. I don't know if you remember the experience called The Void, but it was basically you put on haptic feedback, you put on VR sets, you walk through a warehouse, heat, sensors, motion, elevators, everything feels like you're dungeon crawling or fighting Ghostbusters. Well, that was fun, but the creator of Void went off and created base jumping. And now you're doing base jumping in 4K scans and environments with multiple end zones. And I was like, oh man, he's like, oh yeah, if you really want to get challenging, go over this cliff and dive down, and then it's another landing over there. I was like, all right. And I was wingsuiting. You're in a wingsuit and everything. It's rad. Highly recommend.
But this is digital version or like
a real life version? It sounds like
it's a little bit of both. So you're in a wingsuit. You're in a giant like bay, and there's a bunch of air coming at you.
You're like a flying squirrel. You
are a flying squirrel.
You're a flying squirrel.
And all the techniques you use for base jumping.
It's like super famous in Brazil, right? Like they have like one of the best. They have one of the best base jumps in the world in Brazil. And you're just like one of these things, and you're going through canyons, and it's bonkers. That looks scary.
Yeah,
oh, it looks scary.
It tricks your mind into thinking you did it. All the locations are real. You can literally go to them and base jump. Like it is great.
Oof. Okay. Yeah, I'm not a base jumper. I'm 240 pounds. I would splat is kind of how my
but it's all safe there.
Yeah, no, what he's talking about, Shane, is like it's like the skydiving places, right? Where you're like in but this sounds like it's more of a VR version, kind of mixed with that same
would it be like, so have you ever seen one of those skydiving pods where it's like a vacuumed air seal and you get in there and it floats you up?
Yeah,
and so
like
called
iFlies. Yeah.
So if you do, what if it was like iFly met VR, where it was like you're in an iFly world with
that's
VR?
Exactly
that's what you're saying. So you're actually in the so that's like so that's 4D, right? Like, is that what we classify that? Is like it's 4D because
it's so much different, but like it
that's
is
like
Ready
Player One minus the. It's like a Ready Player One.
It's a lot more controlled because obviously people don't know actually how to fly wingsuits. But I mean they teach you really well, and you can adapt. I mean you jump out of a plane first, and you're like, cool, got control. You land on the edge of the cliff, and the instructor is talking to you. And he's like, okay, 3, 2, 1, jump, and you actually have to jump. Like you do the parachute thing and everything. Yeah,
it is crazy how close we're getting to, because that's safe, but it feels like you're base jumping or
it's a permanent memory.
Yeah, or even for me, I went to Universal Studios and doing the Transformers, and you feel like you just fought a Transformer, at least close to it. You didn't, but you feel like it. It is pretty crazy when you picture like where we've come from, like playing Super Mario Brothers, and now we're like fighting Transformers and the cars moving around.
People always talk about evolution in the sense of like, oh, our body's going to evolve. It's like, no, our mind will evolve well before our bodies ever do.
Yeah,
and this is just part of that experience, right? So. If you go and put a 1980s game in front of a kid these days, they're going to get bored with it most likely, if unless it's Shovel Knight or some of the ancient ones. But they need more. They need more stimulation because their brains are just so much more developed than ours.
All right, so here we're gonna get some fun personal questions.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so you play video games. Obviously, Apex Legends is the coolest game of all time. You're not allowed to say that.
Debatable.
What would be your favorite game of all time?
Favorite game of all time? It's a little game called Breath of Fire. If
Heck
you're, yeah, so everyone was, and the dog was like, "Oh, you got to play Final Fantasy." I was like, I like Breath of Fire better. And so,
But which Breath of Fire?
so I like Breath of Fire 1, but I do have affinity for Breath of Fire 2. It's like Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger. I mean, if you say Chrono Cross is your favorite, you probably should play Chrono Trigger first. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So you live in Austin. We're going to ask you some questions of geolocation here. Austin, best part of Austin, best thing to do in Austin.
I mean, if you come to Austin during the summer, I highly recommend doing a river run. Basically grab some tubes and float down. It's the thing to do. If you're not into the water sports, then go wait in line at Franklin Barbecue. Get some of the best barbecue in all of Texas, which is great. It's I would say it's at least U.S. renowned, maybe even world renowned, because everybody I bring over from China and Russia, they're like, "Oh, let me have Franklin's barbecue." It's definitely Googleable. I really, really, really like the zipline adventures out of Lake Travis.
Okay.
Because it's some of the longest and probably most intense zip lining I've done ever. And there's like 6 or 7 different zip lines. It's one big course. You go for the day and you're definitely tired. And if you just like the views, then there's a place called Oasis out on the lake. And it's this big old like open diner kind of experience. It's just gorgeous. Yeah.
Okay. So what about Northern California? Because you're from Redding. And so like
I'm from Redding.
What do you do up in Northern California if we go visit?
With the drought, nothing now besides burn.
Avoid wildfires.
Yeah, avoid wildfires.
Bring a hose. You know,
avoid the retirement community. No.
Go get some wine, I guess. Like you just wine.
Yeah,
country,
so
right? Like,
just
go get
leave
wine.
Redding first of all, and either go north to Mount Shasta or south to like Napa Valley, right? Like those are completely awesome adventures, no matter what you do. I always went to Mount Shasta and snowboarded as a kid. My birthday present more times than not was a season pass in June, which was always cheaper to buy, which kind of worked out for me anyways. But it's not like Tahoe, right? Now, if you do want to go to Tahoe, it is gorgeous, but you know, when Mount Shasta is only 45 minutes away, you go there.
Yeah. All right. So biggest thing you miss about Franklin, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee?
Hot chicken for sure. Real hot chicken.
Okay, but pause. The debate. What is the best hot chicken place? I have a lot of opinions. I've been to a lot of them.
Well, there's I forget the name of it. Shoot. Yeah, I don't remember the name actually.
Describe it to me. Let's see if I could guess it.
It's like something bees. It's like Howdy Bees.
Hattie B's.
Howdy Bees. Yeah.
Yeah, Hattie B's is like the most famous one out here. They've got the best sides. I'll say that. But like Bolton's is pretty good.
Bolton's is good.
I like Bolton's. Except for like they sell a lot of fish more than they do chicken.
Basically, if I can sign a waiver and my life away to eat the hot chicken, that's the place I want to go.
Ooh,
Hattie B's.
I'm going to throw out there. You got to come here and you got to go to Subculture. You got to try Subculture. It's a tiny place. No one would know about it. You'd miss it. Shane introduced it to me. I can only get to the 3rd out of 5. And I like hot. Now I could get to the 4th, but I would probably, melt.
Right.
And then I'm not even going to try to get to the 5th. The last one, I'm not even going to venture there. I don't know that I'll survive.
I think me and other like-minded people tend to be a little bit more masochistic. It's like, just give me the pain. Like, I want to see what I can take, right? Like, from Carolina Reapers to Ghost Peppers.
Bro.
Yeah.
You got to, like, Subculture is way hotter than Hattie B's.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So here it is. Respawn Entertainment is going to do an offsite in Nashville. We're going to meet your team. And we will take you guys over to Subculture, and we are going to get the hottest of the hot at Subculture.
Oh, I mean, I appreciate the offer. I just don't think EA is going to approve an offsite to anytime soon.
Just so that you can try hot chicken? I think they
I
might.
mean-
I don't know. I'll put in a good word.
But the
Yeah.
hot chicken's unique, man. Like they've got hot chicken tacos, hot chicken sandwiches, hot chicken ramen. So it's like hot chicken fusion. It's actually pretty unique.
That's pretty cool. I'll take
It's
hot chicken
awesome.
ramen. That sounds
It's
amazing.
awesome. All right, last question.
Okay.
What is your favorite movie?
So don't laugh. I'm a child of the 80s. So Willow?
Okay, wow.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. So when were you born? What year?
I was 1984, but I grew up with all the 80s stuff. Like we
Okay.
didn't have like strong television, so we had VHSs forever,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we never had computers or internets or anything like that. And I did say internets because that's what my parents called it. We got the internets. I didn't get an internet until I was probably 16 years old. So
Wow.
I think Willow's pretty good, man. It falls in the same like ballpark as like Labyrinth for me, like a little
there's
bit.
Labyrinth. My second one is
Yeah.
Never Ending Story. Actually, there's a
Oh, never
Love
ending
Never Ending
story.
Story.
picture on my wall to support it.
That is a classic.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That is a classic. Never ending story. You know what? I actually, I'm not going to laugh. I appreciate that. Willow, never ending story. I mean, I am a child of the 80s. I was born in late 79. So
Oh, you definitely
look a lot younger than me, though. What am I
Yeah.
doing wrong? Maybe it's the 5 kids.
I got 6 kids, so,
So,
it can't be that.
all right.
6 kids. You don't even, Taylor, 6 kids.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
excuses.
I think you look pretty
You have
decent.
6 kids?
Yeah.
Okay. You're crazier than me. I would have had 6. I would have had 6.
I also have 3 grandbabies too. So
Oh my gosh. Good for you.
Did you say you have grandbabies?
yeah, I'm one of those like people that did the whole Brady Bunch thing where I had a daughter, my wife had 4 boys, and
I need
had
to
a
get
boy.
my eyes checked or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just
you
don't
look-
age. I figured out I turned 30 and stopped aging. I don't know.
I
It's weird.
turned 30 and it just accelerated. It was like the hockey stick. All right. So, but in all seriousness, now you need to come to Nashville, bring your 6 kids, my
Okay.
5 kids, put the 11 together and let them run wild, and we will go get Subculture.
Half of those aren't kids anymore.
He said grandbabies, bro. Some of his
Well,
grandbabies.
what I
I'll
really
bring
meant
you
to,
guys one.
what I really meant to say is you can bring the older ones and they can watch my kids. So,
Oh, they're
So-
not much my kids. Come on.
so Chad, this was awesome having you. How can we help you? How can people get in touch with you? Are you guys looking to grow and hire? Do you want? Can people get funneled over to Respawn?
So right now, Apex Mobile is always growing, right? HD is always growing. We have a bunch of things going on as far as new games in the hopper for Respawn between our Star Wars franchises, our Apex franchises, the Titanfall stuff. Who knows what's actually happening over there? I mean, I do, but I can't tell you. So there's a lot of stuff going on, right? And then mobile being a brand new team and working with some of the best developers in the world. We're always hiring. So just hit up the Respawn site, and if you see something that even remotely interests you and you think you can do it, then just apply. You're not going to get no that's so hard it's going to crush your fantasy, but like I always encourage people to try. You'd be surprised at how much personality can get you. So,
Yep, raise your hand.
raise
That's
your hand.
awesome. All right, Chad, I just appreciate you giving my son some answers to his questions. I'm going to work on how he forms better questions, but no, I'm kidding. He did
It wasn't
awesome.
too bad. Yeah.
He did awesome, and you can tell he's a true fan. And he asked me yesterday if he can get some coins. I'm glad he was able to get that in there to find out. You know what? Hey, he tried and he failed. He raised his hand. He was willing to fail.
He tried. And if I could and I had extra, I would give it to him. But
So that's awesome. He was like, "Here, you know what? I'm going to get my screen name ready."
He's got both children and grandbabies.
He's got plenty of friends and family.
I'm like the cool grandpa with limitations. Right? Only you get some of the gold.
That's awesome. Well, Chad, this was a ton of fun. I appreciate it. I hope we can meet up maybe another year, find out where Apex is going from there. This was awesome. Totally appreciate your time. And for everyone else, please connect with Chad on LinkedIn. Go to Respawn's website. If you're interested in the job or whatever, connect with them. They're an awesome place to work, and they obviously are doing some really, really cool games. Yeah. So, Chad, again, thank you so much for joining us. Awesome. Everyone else,
pleasure.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Next day.